Well, good day to everyone joining us, and welcome to today's X-Talks webinar. Today's talk is entitled Medical Device Validation Solutions for Evolving Industry Needs. My name is Ryan Muse, and I'll be your X-Talks host for today. Today's webinar will run for approximately 60 minutes, and this presentation includes a Q&A session with our speakers. So the webinar is designed to be interactive, and webinars work best when you're involved. So please feel free to submit your questions and your comments for our speakers throughout the presentation using the questions chat box, and we'll try to attend to your questions during the Q&A session. This chat box is located in the control panel, which is on the right-hand side of your screen. And if you require any assistance along the way, you can contact me at any time by sending a message using the same chat panel. I'd also like to welcome our attendees viewing this presentation from our LinkedIn Live event, and I encourage you to submit your questions as well via the Comments tab. At this time, know that all participants are in listen-only mode, and please note that the event will be recorded and made available for streaming to those who have registered on xtalks.com. At this point, I'd like to thank Kneat Solutions, who developed the content for this presentation and brought us together today. Kneat Solutions' digital validation platform, Kneat GX, digitizes the entire validation lifecycle, enabling companies in highly regulated industries to develop and deliver therapies as efficiently as possible without compromising quality or compliance. Trusted by 8 of the world's top 10 life sciences companies, Kneat GX is used by thousands of validation professionals worldwide. Now I'd like to introduce our speakers for today's event. Kathianne Ross is the Manager of IT Compliance at Fujirebio Diagnostics, Inc., and is a subject matter expert in FDA 21 CFR Part 11 and GAMP methodology for development and validation of GXP computerized systems. She has over 25 years of experience planning, executing, and managing all aspects of system development and validation projects for proprietary software, as well as COTS software sold commercially as the vendor and purchased representing the end user. A customer success manager with Kneat, Tim completed a Bachelor of Science and established a career in forensic science and chemistry before applying his strong understanding of quality assurance and validation processes to customer-facing roles within quality assurance software organizations. Tim is a paperless validation subject matter expert and works closely with many of Kneat's largest customers to ensure the success of their digitized validation programs. Now, before we begin and hear from our speakers, we'd first like to hear from you, our audience. We have appearing on everyone's screen right now a polling question. You can participate by selecting on any of the answers that you see in front of you and then clicking submit. The question we're asking is, where are you on your journey to digitalizing validation? Your answer options are, it starts today with this webinar. You're in the initial discovery phase, you've done some research, but you want to know more. You're about to launch a first digital project, or one or more projects is being delivered digitally, and you're considering how to scale. Again, please take a moment to select an answer to participate, and we greatly appreciate you taking the time to do so. To the question again of where are you on your journey to digitalizing validation? I'm going to give you all a few more seconds to consider an answer before we look at the results, and then we'll hand it over to our speakers to give you their presentation. All right, it looks like we have most of our votes in. All right, everyone, thank you so much for participating. Let's look at the results here. We have 40% choosing with it starts today, and then spread out for the rest of it between initial discovery, you're about to launch a first digital product, or one or more are already being delivered. So again, thank you very much for your participation. Now, without further ado, I'd like to hand the mic over to our first speaker for today, Kat Ross. You may begin when you're ready.
Hey, hello everybody. Thanks for joining today as we talk about system validation and computer software assurance. As Ryan mentioned, I am a manager of IT compliance for my company, and we began using Kneat back in 2020. Our journey began in 2019 with some vendor analysis and pitches to our executive management, letting them know this is the way we wanted to move from paper to a digital environment. So we can talk first about computer CSV versus CSA. So traditional CSV was very top heavy, where we had the traditional IQ, OQ, PQ. The idea was, I think, out of nervousness by industry that we weren't going to do enough. It was, let's do as much as we possibly can, so we can prove that we are doing our best to follow the regulations and our SOPs and whatnot. So what I found through the course of my career, working in traditional CSV, was that we did a whole lot of testing of a lot of functions, but less intense testing of those things that were the highest priority to our company. Ultimately, this was less value-added work, and a huge constraint, excuse me, on time and resources. Whereas the shift to CSA over the past few years has produced a more risk-based approach where we're less concerned with testing the entire application end to end, and we're focusing more on those requirements that are going to affect our business process and our end users. So what I found is we are, in fact, testing less functions, not spending the time testing features that we aren't going to use, and that way we can spend more time testing functionality that is going to be part of our day-to-day business process. So ultimately more value-added work. At the end of the day, this does require some more upfront time with your vendor analysis and selection. But if you do a really good job selecting your vendor, then you have the ability to leverage their own quality program and their validation documentation, which can allow you to do a gap analysis and further lessen your validation burden in-house. Ultimately, this will provide a more efficient and valuable initial rollout, and followed by ongoing maintenance with change control that can also be streamlined through the years moving forward as the application grows within your organization. So we can move on to the next slide. All right, so where does Kneat come in? Regardless of your approach, whether you're doing every function end to end or you're using more risk-based approach that's part of CSA, utilizing Kneat will provide you with many, many benefits if you're coming off of a paper or manual program in-house. Certainly, you can mimic your manual process into one that can be fully electronic. This allows that paper on glass approach where your end users and also your quality groups in-house will hopefully be less skeptical about you changing a process that may have been proven over time. There's that level of comfort that we're still going to be able to achieve the same end, but the means to get there is going to be better. We have the flexibility in Kneat to design your own project types and associated deliverables. So it really doesn't matter what type of validation or testing you're doing. It can be software, equipment, process, med device itself. You're doing the same type of work and you can document it in the same way, but that's custom to how your company's doing it. That leads us to being able to templatize our documents and our project structure. So again, you can take your own documents that you're comfortable working with and that your users are comfortable with and your quality groups are seeing and your regulatory agencies are used to seeing and build those into Kneat so they're still utilizing those, but you're able to do everything electronically. We also have customer configured approval routes, so you can still pull in all those same roles and team members who would typically review and approve your documentation. And then we have, because everything is digital and electronic and housed in a secure database, we have that easy cross-referencing between your projects, the documents, and the output. So within the application, with the click of a button, you can get from one part of that project's journey to another very easily. And also all those documents are instantly accessible. And so when you need to share them internally, externally, they're right there and very easy for you to get to. All right, next slide, please. All right, so where we started at Fujirebio Diagnostics, Inc. So I've been with my company now 15 years. When they hired me, they did not have a dedicated system validation person. A couple of the applications we had in-house, the vendors were doing the validation work with some quality people interspersed who had a lot of quality experience, but not specific to the technology piece. Coming in though in 2010, we were still on paper. Ultimately, by 2016, we had adopted and implemented an electronic document management system. So we were able to move our validation program into a hybrid methodology where we would have those bookend documents, your requirement specs, your plans, your summary, system release memos that have the biggest audience, we would have those all completely managed within our EDMS, but we were still, even though we could like author and then review and approve our test scripts, we were still printing all of those, printing them out, filling them out by hand, taking screenshots, printing those, labeling them, attaching them, sticking them in binders. So what you actually see on your screen are actual pictures of our binders and binders and binders of documentation. And at the time where we started looking at digital solutions to move from paper to electronic, my count at that time was 184 binders across five 5-foot file cabinets on site. And that did not include the 14 full boxes of prior validation documentation that we had been storing off site. So like every 2 years, we would go through and we would pull the oldest documentation, send it off site so that we could grab it if we needed it for auditors. But as you can imagine, it was time consuming and we produced a lot of paper. Next slide, please. All right, so our goals once we decided to move forward with Kneat, and I apologize that the text on this slide is small, but it actually doesn't even cover everything we wanted to do, but they were the highest priority goals. We wanted to be able to get off of paper and perform real-time dynamic collaboration with our test scripts, with our documentation that was included with our validation projects and our change control projects. And be able to use those existing templates again, because our users, the individuals in my team, the individuals in other departments who were system owners and project owners, they were familiar to seeing a certain type of document that came from my group. And what I found over time is that that also extends to how auditors would view our documentation when they would come in to look at us for, whatever reason. Consistency often leads to uh, a sense of control, and then we have control over what we're producing. For test review and execution, this was huge. We wanted to be able to have individuals get into the system and actually truly execute electronically. So typing in those actual results, if you're still doing that, marking things pass, fail, or NA, attaching in your screenshots so they're right there in the database, but do it in a compliant fashion. So there were individuals, other groups within my organization who were like, yeah, well, we're doing testing, but we're just typing stuff into Word. It's like, well, that's not compliant. And it's changeable. Even if you make those documents read only, there's always a way around it. Part 11 was a huge, huge aspect of what we needed to be able to accomplish. And then another huge benefit of this was then also having multiple users be able to execute single scripts at the same time. So we didn't have to break paper scripts apart and hand, one person a couple of pages and another person, and you started working on something in the office and the next day you don't come in and you're telling somebody like, hey, can you go grab this test script that I was halfway through yesterday and finish it out on paper. You're right there. You all can be working in the application concurrently and effectively and efficiently. We have some projects that are and some systems that require a lot of continual change control work within our organization. So we have a lot of team members, not just within the IT group, but also business analysts and quality assurance personnel. And we have some of the scripts are huge, and we may have 4 or 5 individuals in there working on that testing at the same time concurrently. Obviously, hugely beneficial and way more efficient than on paper, and compliant, which you're not going to have on Word or another type of word processing document. The other thing too is test incidents or deviations. Something we struggled with our manual and even hybrid methodology was traceability between, we do a project right now and we have some deviations occur, and they're not major, so maybe they don't get resolved right now, and we go forward and we go live with that new version. The ability to be able to go back and pull all those prior deviations and do an analysis when the next system upgrade comes out, and see if we have had some things be resolved was hard. It was difficult going through paper. We would have to keep extra Excel spreadsheets and things like that. With Kneat, it's all just right there and all tied together. So again, very, very easy. A click or two of your mouse and you're back to anything that has occurred for the system over time. Change control is huge. We probably do within my group. I mean, we manage about 30 different systems and we're doing probably 60 or so change controls a year at a minimum. So the ability to streamline and be able to reuse those templates and that prior documentation has been very, very helpful. The ability to import sections from a prior change control plan for a similar project is super easy, as well as also importing text from your Word documents if you have them on paper. Kneat allows you to do that as well, and then reformat as you want to within the application. And that also allows us to very quickly rebuild the traceability matrix. So that's a report in the system for us, how we have it configured. And it's an out-of-the-box report, which works with our business process, how we have that set up. And honestly, we just run the report against the URS and we can pick and choose what projects we want to have represented in the output. So you can see over time, not just what requirements were tested, but how often they were tested. And in what versions. And then of course, metrics and reporting. Anytime you get something into a database, you have that ability to do counts and date ranges and visibility. And so that helps us allocate tasks more effectively within my group, where we can see we have one individual that may be overloaded at a particular time. So we have something else come up, we can give them something different. And again, it's all dynamic reporting that's very easy and at your fingertips within the application. All right, next slide. All right, so initially, again, as I mentioned, we began our look at Kneat in 2019. And at the time, we were in a hybrid fashion where we were using our electronic document management system, but then still printing out all those scripts and executing them by hand. So the big ticket item was we want to be able to execute electronically and get off of paper. Goal number one was day one in production, no more test scripts on paper. And we were able to achieve that. And then over time, over the past now going into 6 years of us having Kneat, as we've increased our licensing, we started with a 10 user license and now we have 80, 60 standard, 20 light. We've been able to build out projects where we can have all the audience members and all the team members have licenses in Kneat. So now things like our URSs and things like that are also in Kneat. We don't have that redundancy. But initially we started out going like, okay, we need to get the scripts in there and then everything else can exist in our EDMS and we may have some redundancy. But very quickly we were able to actually meet and then exceed the goals of that initial plan. Next slide. All right, so our outcomes. So first of all, what I wanted to do was have the system configured so that it represented how we were doing things using like Windows Explorer, where we would have our system names and then the projects beneath that folder and then the deliverables within those projects. I wanted it to be easy for our users to find what they were looking for and for it to feel comfortable. It also mimicked how we had our structure for our validation documents set up in our EDMS as well. So we were really able to create this, what I call a virtual filing cabinet, where instead of literally going to that physical file cabinet and opening the drawer and leafing through, you're able just to go through the navigation tree and go find the projects you're looking for, whether it's a new project you're starting or something previous that you accomplished that you need to pull documentation from.
Yeah, and Kat, I see, and I also recognize that not everybody will be super familiar with Kneat, but just to help the everybody on the webinar here, you've got these arranged, looks like by system, and then into each project for that system. I'm wondering, obviously that's a good filing method because it's easy to navigate through, but I'm curious if there were any kind of surprise benefits to just the general layout of how you have it.
Yeah, So actually the flexibility of it was a nice surprise. So what I've included in the slide presentation are screenshots from the CSV discipline in Kneat that we have configured for IT compliance. The other half of our house that uses Kneat and as another discipline is our engineering group. So they actually have their virtual filing cabinet ordered by year and then a log per year, and then they add their studies into that log. So where you see my system folders here and then the projects underneath, they actually have, 2021, 2022, 2023, and then within that, all of their engineering, which is like equipment, calibration stuff, revalidation of, uh, but equipment that's used for manufacturing and whatnot. So that was actually really nice, and I was very pleasantly surprised to see how easy it was to really customize your view and what you see, not just on the whole, but then to segment and be able to accommodate different departments within your organization that may do things differently, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
it does. And I think that's a really important point because, obviously when you do things in paper, you do it very intentionally,
Right.
for binders and for, audits and whatever. And you have it set up in a certain way, but everybody does it different. I mean, I work with a lot of different
Mhm.
customers in Kneat, and we don't want you don't want the system to tell you how you're supposed to be doing it, right?
Right.
If organizing it by system for you works, but by year works for your other division, you need
Yeah.
a platform that will allow you to configure it in a way that allows you to use it in the best possible way.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I mean, and that's what we try to do is, when you start with us, it's okay, what's your process now? How do we keep that as close to what you're used to so that you get less
Yeah.
kind of shock out of the
Right.
gate, and then
Mhm.
it's just like plugging in and rolling with what you need to roll
Yeah.
with. So I think that's super important. I'm glad
Yeah.
it worked for you guys. Yeah.
Yeah, it worked out great. And then, and like I said, to be able to manage those different disciplines within our organization that, just have a different, different steps within their process, is hugely beneficial. And also, too, what we found is, I think one of the pitfalls for companies when they're moving from any manual process, it doesn't have to be system validation or equipment validation or, you know, device validation, but any manual process to electronic is there is that huge pull to want to have it look and feel exactly like you did on paper. But what
Yeah.
happens is we get so stuck in that it you can be closed-minded to the benefits that a digitized process can lend. And that may mean doing things a little bit different in your process that allow you to take advantage of those system features. So that's always something that, I tell individuals when they're looking at Kneat, or even individuals within our own organization who are looking to build in a new process, and I'll, spec that out for them and configure it for them so they can play with it, is like be open-minded to the the better traceability and compliance that you can achieve if you maybe make some little modifications to how you're doing things in a manual way, because it's not always efficient, right?
Yeah.
um, but you still, like you said, you don't want to have that shock to the users where they're like, oh my god, I don't even know where to start in this.
Yeah, and I think that efficiency is a big point because the yeah, as you're trying to justify, you know, software has a cost, so you're trying to justify the ROI on what you're doing. So if you can make it more efficient, you can save time and then save money on each
Right.
project, then you're getting to where you need to
Yeah.
be. Yep.
Absolutely. All right, probably move on to the next slide. All right. So again, here's a couple more screenshots of our progression, and how we manage our projects from, say, an initial validation on through change control. So we have a log set up at each system name level. And this has been really awesome for us. One of the things that we really struggled with when we were manual and we were keeping a log in Excel, and then even moving over to our EDMS, was the ability to like find projects easily. And we would have a project number or project ID, which would be unique to that particular effort, but then being able to see very quickly what that was for. So on the left side, you can see a view of my screen, which shows we validated Kneat, of course. You should validate your paperless validation application. So we had our initial validation in Kneat, which started with 001. And then from there, the system automatically, you add the project to the log, it auto increments a project number, and we can put in specific information about what that project was for. So I'm able to go to the log at what I have chosen to be my top level, which is my system name. It could be your year, as I mentioned, with our engineering group, where they have everything categorized and organized by year, and see a full life cycle, of the application and evolution from that initial validation through change control. So what you're seeing on the screen right now is literally my log for our Kneat validations. You can see dating all the way back to August of 2020 when we first started using the application. So it's great. And then once you set up your document packs and you say, well, if it's an initial validation, we need to have these 12 different deliverables automatically created and numbered for us that then we can populate. Or it's in change control and we only need 5. The system can do that for you, and then you can add and remove at will as well if things need to deviate. I mean, because we know every project is not the same. Sometimes we need some additional documents added. Sometimes we don't need them all. So it's really nice to be able to see literally at your fingertips all the work that's gone on through the course of the time that you've had that documentation in Kneat.
Yeah, and I'm curious about efficiency on this one because, right, you've pointed out you've done an initial validation, which has its own set of documents,
Right.
then change controls with their own set of documents, right? I think back to my previous lives where when we were fully paper, because I'm old, you would
No, I'm right there with you.
yeah, you'd have to like go look up what you needed for the project that you were about to start, right? And so
Yes.
there was always this time of like, okay, I need to do this thing. Let me go look up what I need and then
Yeah.
pull wherever and try to find where everything is.
Yeah.
Whereas with this, all you're doing is creating an entry and it's giving you what
One
you
entry.
need based on your
Yeah.
procedures already. So
Correct.
that's probably one of those underlying efficiencies that you didn't realize. Maybe you knew, but you didn't really realize what you were getting into until you started.
Yeah.
Can you speak maybe about that, or was it
Yeah.
what you were expecting off of that?
Yeah, it was what I was expecting and more actually. And as you can see, like in the log that I have here, I'm the created by person for most of these because I'm the project lead all the time on our Kneat validation projects. But if you were to go into any of the other systems that we have that we manage validation for, you're going to see my team members in there as the individuals who initiated that, which of course is all role-based and controlled by security. So we do have a few cowboys and cowgirls in the organization who I don't give that level of access to, lest they start opening projects without letting me know ahead of time. But yeah, the nice thing too is when we set up this project log, again, we were working with the individuals from Kneat who were assigned to our company at the time and helping us get everything configured per our requests. What you see on the screen is what I wanted for my group, what I knew we would find most useful. Our engineering group, however, has some different columns. They've added an Iron Mountain box number. So when they send their old paper documentation off site, they wanted in their log to be able to know exactly the Iron Mountain label number that was in there. They also like to have a status in there as well. So it's, initiated, in process, completed. They like to be able to then go into each of those rows and say, yes, this is done, because at the end where I keep my logs open as an ever rolling list of projects. Again, we might have a system or two that don't undergo change control, but once every couple of years, and we have other systems where we're doing 1 or 2 a month. The engineering group at my company wants to be able to lock down that log when they finish that year. Once everything's done, they approve it, and then there's no more editing to it. So that ability to customize the log to show each group individually exactly what they want to see is awesome. And again, just that ability to go in. I mean, we would create the folder in, Windows Explorer for the system name, and then we would create a folder with the project number. And then once we decided what kind of project it was, more folders, so that we'd have the documents in there. And but we had to label all the folders to say what they were for. Was it a 9.2 upgrade? Was it a 9.2.5 patch? So it's all just right here and so easy to get to.
Yeah, and you kind of preempted my next question, which was
Yes.
about no, it's good, which was about the actual logs. And so in addition to what other people want to see, I assume that you're also building these for audits as well, right? Because
Yes,
you
correct.
need to be able to present, here's a system and here's all of the changes and everything we've done
Right.
over it. So, and I assume that goes across all, everybody who's using Kneat, right? Some of the folders have very specific things for the audits that occur there.
Yeah.
So yeah, that makes complete sense.
Yeah. And we'll have auditors come in and, they may want to see the list and then they're just like, hand over their eyes, point at the screen, and it's like, oh, which one is it out of, all these different projects? Other auditors say, give me your most recent. Others say, show us the very first initial validation and then your most recent. So the ability really just to like again, there's no like, wait a minute, I need to go to the file cabinet, which is in the other wing of the building, and then like bring that paper in and then have, somebody log it as something we provided to them. It's just crazy efficient. I don't know what else to say. Really really makes life easier. So, all right, if we want to move to the next slide, if we don't have more questions about the log right now. Okay, so as I mentioned previously, within each project, so in these screenshots here, the upper one under workspace, it shows the different project IDs that we've had for Kneat. And again, there's more in that list. I can only fit so much on the screenshot. And then as I drill into each of those projects, I can see the documentation on the right that was developed and executed for that particular project. So in that view, you can see we have got everything from plans, change requests, the actual testing documents with the scripts. I even have a project completion checklist, which I developed, which helps us make sure that we have finished everything, right? So my company has a number of different divisions across the globe. Some of them are involved in some of our other applications. We need deliverables from them, and it's like our place say, yes, we've received everything, everything's been approved, it's all locked down. So you really can customize what you're doing. And then the lower screenshot there is actually of a testing document that has a number of individual scripts added to it. So you can go through within the testing document and you have your test steps all set up like you would on paper, or in Word or whatever. And then you can literally go through and electronically type in your results, attach in your screenshots. They're there in the database. You do not have to keep them anywhere else. Once they are added to your document in Kneat, they live in the database. So none of this keeping extra folders of documentation in different places. We also have some older applications in-house where you would like create a hyperlink to a screenshot or a report that you created. But if that file leaves its original location, you've broken that link. So that's a really nice feature. And then of course your Part 11 compliance signature on every row or every table, whatever your process requires. So this is a traditional system validation test script. I'm signing each row. I'm also signing the end. You may have tables of testing where you're only required to sign the bottom of the table. And that's super easy too. You just say add a table signature and the individual needs to sign. So another thing too that I don't have a screenshot here for is that ability for this kind of like track changes view if you need to make changes. So on paper, if we made a mistake, a typo, whatever you're following good documentation practices. Single line through, don't obscure what was there originally, write in what's supposed to be there, initial date, put your reason. Kneat does that all for you now. So even though the row's signed, if I need to go back in and change it for some reason, the system automatically launches like a tracking behind it that you cannot obscure or make invisible once the document would be produced for someone to review. So it really enforces the good documentation practices and that Part 11 compliance, signature, and traceability piece with your original data and any additional data you need to put in there.
Yeah, I think that's great. Just one comment. You obviously have your document types and test scripts in here. How much flexibility do you have in what you're seeing? Like, are you building these document types? Are you putting them in as templates? Like, what are you doing for these projects, and how much flexibility do you have, and
Yeah,
what
so
your
we
outcome is?
Yeah, so we have them all as templates. Certain pieces of the templates we will lock down, like say like the header and the cover page. We don't want the average author to be able to change. We want that to be persistent across all. But then we can have the files templatized but still adjustable per. So, say my change control plan, I have my set, sections and subsections. Well, you know what? We have different needs depending on if I'm working on a system that was developed in-house by our own developers versus something that was purchased. So for in-house stuff, I need to have a code lock memo, and I, need to have OQ testing, versus PQ or UAT. My change control plan needs to be able to talk about that, the specifics for the project. So where my change control plan is a template, I can go in and adjust those sections, whether it's the name of the section, adding, removing, the content that's in there. So you have the ability to make things still look very consistent, but have that flexibility to make the documents unique and 100% representative of the project that's being executed. One of the things too that we also like to have is like kind of a boilerplate, like dump document. So I have this like an external documents file that I include with all of our projects. It's to pull in anything that's not coming from outside of Kneat. So it may be a service ticket, right? So if we had a bug in an application, someone in-house submitted a ticket, we want to be able to pull that in PDF and attach it into the project in Kneat. I can go do that. Upgrade confirmation reports from Kneat for for all of our upgrades and our patches and things like that. I can pull those and then just pull them into Kneat. And again, once they're in Kneat and in the database, they're there. I don't have to keep them anywhere else. So you can make things as complicated and locked down as you want, or as open and flexible. Depends on your user base. We have a
May even
lot
depend
of,
on It
yeah,
may even depend on the document too. Some of them
correct.
you may allow to be pretty flexible, and others
Yes.
are very rigid. Yep.
Very, very right. Exactly. Depending on the risk classification of
Yep.
of the project. Certainly work that may be getting done for an equipment validation for a piece of equipment that's being used to produce product at my company is going to have a different risk classification than a test script that's, testing something within a clinical application. So yeah, it's really it's just so flexible, what you can do with the application, and kind of bend and flex it to your needs and your projects. Okay, next slide. Oh gosh, we're already at an hour 40, or 40 minutes. Okay, so here we also too, we have we're able to very easily see the full life cycle of each document. It's very clear and traceable. Again, it's a button on the side. You can click that and you can see everything from the point at which the document was created and who it was done by, all the way through pre-approvals, executions, post-approvals, and any further editing of the document. So this is all there. It's all part of the audit trail. It can't go away. You can't obscure it, whether you like it or not. It's all traceable, the entire life cycle of the document. All right, you can move on to next slide, please. Okay, so here is an example of what I talked about 2 slides ago, which is that audit trail and the enforcement of originally recorded data not being obscured going forward. So what I have here is a screenshot of an actual, is the prerequisite steps for a script that I executed. And I had input the wrong, looks like I entered the incorrect username for one of my test user accounts. I realized it after I signed off on the step. Back, I edited it. You can't edit it or re-sign until you put in your reason for modification. So we see in the 3 rows for that step 2, we actually see 3 pieces of what happened. The original when I signed, the updated, and then the final of when I signed. And we always have at the bottom that fully 21 CFR Part 11 compliant date and time of signature, who did it, and your reason. So again, one of the concerns, which is kind of funny when you go from paper to electronic, is falsification of information. And the reality is that if you can use an application like Kneat, it becomes really, really hard, actually impossible to falsify information. So, you know, it's where we want to be from a compliance standpoint.
Yeah, and I think, the benefit of having CFR Part 11 and Alcoa built straight into the app, right? It's not something that you can turn off. Like you can't say, oh, for this script, I don't want, I don't want to track any changes that we're making. Like it's always going to be there. You always have to sign off on it.
Yeah.
And I think just not having to deal with that frees you up to do the actual testing and focus on that more, right? I'm not making sure that I signed it immediately after I inserted that screenshot, right? Like I just have to do these things in order.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's nice to see that was exactly what you were looking for, and it met all of the requirements that you were looking for.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because I'll even, we have a lot of like custom reporting applications in house, and my one developer who works on most of those, he'll do like a developer testing, like quick shot testing. And he when he asked me, he was like, can I sign like all the rows at once? And I was like, no, you can't do that. Like if you need to NA anything, you can do that in bulk and sign off and give your reason for NAing. But I'm like, no, you need to sign each row. And he was so put off by it. And I said, listen, if we did it the old way, you'd be writing out your initials and then signing everything by hand and, writing past whatever. I'm like, here you can just choose from a check, from a pick list, and you're just, dropping it. And he's like, okay, fine. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, but like, yes, you have to sign, but I'm like, it literally takes you 10 seconds. Like, why are you complaining? So the fact that you can be like really, really neat and exceed all the regulatory requirements and have it be so easy. I'm not saying you won't get pushback from some individuals, but truly the amount of time that you save from not having to that handwriting of everything, like Tim, like you said, leaves that time. If you're going to spend an hour executing a script, I want to be able to get through 30 steps and test everything I need to, then only get through 10 because I've got to actually handwrite everything.
Yeah.
So just overall, it's just so much more efficient. So don't tell that developer that I told that story. So he does an awesome job, but
awesome guy.
Awesome. He is. He's fantastic. All right. Next slide. All right. So here are a few more screenshots just showing that instant connectivity and traceability between documents and deliverables. So I have a requirement spec on the left, and then I have a testing document with scripts that were executed, testing those requirements at the bottom. And then on the right, a deviation report, which we call test incidents at my company. So I can easily, through these dynamic and active links within the objects and the files in Kneat, I can very easily get to everything that is part of creating that picture of the project. And just bounce back and forth between them with literally with a single click. It's all right there, even down to reports that you generate.
Yeah, and I think this is just kind of talking more about that efficiency. And in the past, you would have done this all manually, right? It's not something you can't build. It's just the time that you save by having it automated. And I'm wondering, have you noticed, because you're not having to focus on this, has it enabled you to do more, or has it enabled you, or is this just straight up time savings on your side from not having to worry about, okay, where was that requirement? Okay, we had a deviation. Where's that document?
It definitely enables us to do more in the sense that, for example, for like regression testing, right? You have a deviation, you get it fixed, we need to retest. Are we just picking and choosing the couple steps that failed or that might have been impacted, or is it a function that's a bigger piece of the puzzle and really we should maybe execute the whole script again? Well, the decision to just go execute the whole script again and do full regression testing over deciding, oh, we got to have this, our go lives next week, and we're in crunch mode and whatever. That decision is like a no-brainer anymore because of the ability to do everything electronically. Again, I'm not reprinting the script. I'm not single lining through whole, like it's just we really can do more in less time, which is increasing the quality of what we're outputting. Documenting of deviations, people hate doing it. I hate doing it. I mean, nobody likes to write a deviation, but because we have it in a form that's already preset with all the sections and the fields that need to be filled out, it's not that big of a deal. It's not that time consuming the way it used to be.
I know you're probably going to talk about reporting, but I'm curious if deviations in particular, you want to look at trends, right? Like,
yep.
What are we seeing is happening over and over? Has that been facilitated by any of this? Like, do you find it easier to not only see them, but then also like look at the status, look at what it truly was that caused that issue?
Yeah, certainly, because we have the ability with our issues report that you guys provide, where I can just pull a report very quickly that lists all the deviations over time that were documented for whatever we were testing. And in that we can see what was closed, we have those quick descriptions which tell us what's happening. So say there's a particular screen that just contingent, I'm not talking about Kneat here, but say you have a particular screen that's like just continually buggy over time, or certain fields, the ability to just hit that report and pull it up and just have it listed, it gives us a whole lot of information that we would have had to hunt and peck for, and a lot harder, more labor intensive process previously when we were on paper, and even in even using our EDMS. All right, next slide. All right. So any document in Kneat, this is something people always ask, can we get it out of Kneat if it's in there? And the answer is absolutely yes. So we have the ability to very easily export documents, any document in the system. If it's a testing document where you've had scripts and potentially maybe you had deviations and you've got screenshots, you have options to include or not include those things. This has been very, very helpful during audits. When we've hosted auditors, oftentimes I'm remote because I primarily work from home at this point and have for the past several years. So I may pull up Kneat on the screen and they can see what's happening, and I can, you know, say they want to go here, they want to go there, no problem. Or they might just say, like, we're at the end of our day. We didn't get to look at deliverables A, B, and C from this project. Can you just send them to us? And we can just go ahead and export them and then send the auditor off with them so they can look at them with their leisure. And everything that you see in Kneat, you're also seeing in those exports as well, and then some. So it's very, very easy. It's very good for facilitating those reviews, whether it's internal process audits or external individuals who are looking at your documentation.
Yeah, and I think, just to point out, those exports are configurable too. And so sometimes they want to see everything. Sometimes they just want to see the core document, and
Right.
they don't care as much about attachments and that kind of stuff. All of that can be configured. And so you do get a little bit of that flexibility on what you provide to an auditor, and they can always ask for more. It's,
Yep.
it does give you that, which is nice.
Yeah. And generally speaking, I mean, our process with auditors is like, you give them the first thing they ask for, let them drill down.
Yeah, exactly.
Let them do a seek and find. So, all right. Next slide. All right. So here we'll talk about reporting real quick. Not that I shouldn't diminish it in any way because it's very powerful. We have reports that we can pull. Our traceability matrix is one of those. Easily generated on demand, like I described earlier, over one project, over many projects for a particular system or entity, piece of equipment, whatever you're testing. And then we also have the dashboard reporting, which is really awesome and is kind of dynamic in real time, where we have visual depictions of types of projects, deliverables, what stages they're at. Just really nice for doing that resource planning and getting a full picture of what's happening in the application and who's doing what. Again, any of the information is exportable as well. But at the same time, the traceability matrix is pretty cool because even as you're building out your test scripts, you can go in and pull that URS and it's going to show you what you've already cross-referenced and included in a script, or what's still pending that you need to still address. So it's not like a one-shot deal where you just pull it at the end. You can continue to use it over the course of your project when you're developing your testing to test your requirements.
Yeah, and it seems like with working with you over the years, all of our just base core reporting in the app has worked pretty well for you guys. The RTM, the dashboards that are there. Obviously, we have other methods where you could do APIs into Power BI and that kind of stuff, but it doesn't really feel like that's been something you've needed.
Not yet. I have a lot of ideas.
Yeah, but it's there when you need it. We can always help.
Yeah, I know it is. Yeah, and what's also cool too is my train of thought is the ability to like filter down and just really pull the information that you want to see at any given time. Again, I find myself at this point, can't think of really anything at this moment that I need. Like, it really does fit fit the bill. But of course, things have become easier as we've grown our user community at the company, where now I don't need to include as much in my summary reports and my validation final reports, because I can just cross-reference documents within that and Kneat, and those individuals have Kneat licenses and can just get to what they want to see when they want to see it.
Yeah, and it's another area where like you don't want us telling you what data you want to see, right? Like you don't want the platform saying, well, this is the only way you're going to get it. And so we do work pretty closely with our customers to understand, okay, what's the regulatory burden?
Yeah.
What are they being asked to provide? What do they need from a business perspective to show that they're hitting their targets too? And we do try to evolve these. The dashboards themselves are newer features this year or last year. I keep forgetting it's January.
Yeah.
And obviously the APIs are new too. So it's areas where, as we're getting feedback from our customers that we need to either have this new thing in there, or there's a new requirement that's out that we need to fulfill, we just continue to evolve that, which is important.
Yeah, it is. It is. Okay, next slide. All right. So I mentioned it's not just for testing anymore. So that initial plan, 5, 6 years ago was we've got to get our testing into Kneat. And I can truly honestly say from day one in production, my group did not execute a script on paper anymore. So it's been, phenomenal in that regard. And now that more individuals within my organization have become familiar with Kneat, and we've been able to increase our user base, now we're able to have more individuals from quality, from engineering, from regulatory, whatever, have licenses. So I don't have to use our EDMS at this point for more than half of our projects or our systems at this point. Everything is in Kneat. It's all encapsulated in there. And there's no like, oh, well, you've got to go to this system to get that, or you got to go to that file cabinet to get this information. It's all right there. So I am looking forward in my organization to being able to continue the scope of use for, just different areas and different departments.
Yeah, and I mean, how you guys have used it, where you've come in with a very particular use case and how you want it to be deployed, and then you kind of see value in it, and other people at Fujirebio are
Yeah,
kind of coming into it as well. So that's exactly what we want to see. And it's why you want your solution to be flexible too, because
right.
everybody does it different.
Yeah,
Everybody has their own requirements and documents and all of that. And so we want to make it as easy as we can while providing that efficiency that people are looking for.
right.
Cool.
Okay, I think that's the last of my slides. Wow, it took up a lot of time.
No, that was fantastic. Thank you so much, both of you, for this very insightful presentation today. As we move into the Q&A session, I'd like to direct the audience's attention towards the Q&A, sorry, the chat box on the right-hand side of the screen where you can submit questions. For those on LinkedIn Live events, feel free to use the comments section. I've already received some questions from the audience, though, so we're going to get ourselves started with those. And the very first question that I have for here says that, they want to know, did you put prior completed project documentation in Kneat, or just those new going forward after your go live? And then if you started with just new projects, it's a good question. How did you manage both and stay compliant with your SOPs?
Yeah, so because we had so many systems that we were managing, it didn't make sense to try to put prior completed work into the application. We started new. So if we had if we had a change control come up for an application that was done in our hybrid fashion previously, we decided what we need to do. It's a change control, add that new project to Kneat, and from that point forward, everything for that system was done in Kneat. So we chipped away at it over the years. And so as a result, we've been able to, at this point, I think we only have like one file cabinet for IT compliance actually in the office. And it has just a few initial validation documents from stuff that was like more than 10 years ago. But we kind of approach it as each project comes, and as we decide, well, we need to do this test script or that test script, we'd get it into Kneat, we would move forward. And it's really been cool to see the evolution from just a handful of documents per project or per system, and now how much we have in there with all the end-to-end documentation. So and then managing it with regard to the SOPs is we still, for a good while, we still kept the Excel log of where's the most recent stuff, for this particular application. And then as time wore on, we're able to move away from that. So it was just a very natural, organic progression from having things on paper to now. I haven't pulled in probably 3 years a paper document for an auditor for anything that anyone has asked for. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I would say that it's about 50-50 with our customers coming in on if they want prior documents in or not. It's easy for us to do. Most typically it's because they want to be able to reference it pretty easy within their new digital docs. So from our perspective, we don't mind either way. We can do it however you're looking to do it.
Yeah. And we've had some old documentation that we've, we put it in PDF, and where I mentioned that external documents file that we keep with all of our projects, we'll just pull it in there and just have it exist there. In fact, I mentioned our engineering group, another column in their log is for prior hard copy scanned study protocols that they want to just have ready and available for reference. So the ability to do that also does make it easy to pull in some of that legacy documentation if you need to have it at the ready.
Perfect. Excellent. Thank you very much for that answer. The next question I have here wants to know just if you've received any pushback from auditors.
Honestly, surprisingly, no. And and I've actually at this point presented validation documents for some of our med devices where the device was an application, an online tool directly to FDA, and they've been really, really happy with it. What I found is that auditors are very appreciative now of not having to get that pile of paper and leaf through it, right? They can have a very targeted evaluation of what you're providing them. And again, they're often impressed with how quickly I can get the information. Right, it's no more again where you're getting the Teams message from someone from quality saying the auditor wants to see the validation final report from this particular system, that was done back in 2018. You're like, okay, give me 30 minutes and let me go look in my Excel log and figure out what file cabinet it's at, and then pull it and then make sure everything's there. Like, it's instantaneous, the ability to provide the information that's asked for. So to date, I can truly say I haven't hit an auditor yet, whether it was one of our partners, a regulatory agency, or otherwise, that has questioned what we were doing and what our documentation looked like when it was coming from Kneat.
Wonderful, excellent. Thank you so much for that answer, for all of the answers, and again for this wonderful presentation. We have reached the end, though, of our time here today. To our audience, if we couldn't attend to your questions, know that the team at Kneat Solutions will follow up with you, or if you have some further questions, you can direct them to the email address that's up on the screen. I want to thank everyone for participating in today's webinar. You will be receiving a follow-up email from XTalks with access to the recorded archive for this event. A survey window will be popping up on your screen as you exit, and your participation is appreciated as it helps us to improve our webinars. Now, additionally, I've shared a link to view the recording of today's event in the chat box, which you can also share with your colleagues so they may register for the recording here as well. For those watching via LinkedIn Live events, we encourage you to visit xtalks.com to register for this event and gain access to features such as viewing the recording and more. Now, please join me once more in thanking our speakers for their wonderful time here today. We hope that you found the webinar informative. Have a great day, everyone, and thank you for coming.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining.